When is the last time you listened to a podcast about web development, web design, and small business and didn't fall asleep? Yes, we cover web development, web design, and small business, but like actual human beings with personalities. If you're a beginner, we're not going to talk over your head. It's more like asking your buddy for help. We have guests, we have fun, and let me tell you, these two can get off on a tangent. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to HTML All the Things Podcast. This is Matt Lawrence and Mike Curran.
That's right, everybody. We're back, and this is episode 109, Sanity Io, Twitch, Imposter Syndrome, and web apps, otherwise known as What is Going On. I'm Matt, that's Mike, and this week we'll be discussing, of course, all the stuff we just said, Sanity, Twitch, Imposter, all the rest of it, and there will be no web news this week, as this entire episode is conversational. So Mike and I have just kind of had a bunch of topics that kind of died at the fact where they weren't big enough to be a full episode topic, and so we kind of left it in the notes on Trello or in our minds, wherever, and it's like, oh, we want to talk about Twitch, not big enough for an episode. Imposter Syndrome, we've already done an episode type of thing. So this is sort of just a smorgasbord of the little topics that we want to discuss but weren't big enough to be in a full episode or maybe be web news worthy, whatever. This is how we're doing it. So, weekly pain points. Mike, please take it away.
Okay, weekly pain point this week is my computer crashing. So this weekend I was playing a game, Overcooked. I don't know if you ever played Overcooked.
I played Overcooked, yeah.
And it just started crashing on the same level at essentially the same time, and it crashed like 3 times in a row to the point where I just have to use my laptop. But so I was assuming like maybe there's like a overheating issue or something. I don't know, some sort of weird issue because I was the only one crashing. I was with four other people. But then I ran like all the diagnostic stuff. Like I literally stressed my CPU and GPU to 100% together for like 10-15 minutes and got them up to their max temperatures. Nothing. So I really, really hate, and this kind of goes well into like web development and coding. I hate intermittent issues. Like I hate it when I can't reproduce something. Like when I'm getting a bug report for one of the apps that I'm working on, and someone's like, once every like week or two, I'll have this little this little thing active when it shouldn't be active, and I'm like, can you reproduce it? No. Hate it. Hate that. It's like, what am I supposed to do with that? I don't know how to, like, if you can't reproduce it and it happens once every 2 weeks, I literally can't fix it.
Well, with stuff like that, I do know that, like, the way I've been trained anyway, is that you treat that as, I forget the name that you call it, but how I was trained was if it can't be reproduced and it's really sporadic, you label that as, like, I think they call it a fluke or something, and then that's it. You just don't fix it. Because it's every 2 weeks, maybe you'll put, like, a monitor on it, or you'll ask more specific questions, like, is it every time the clock switches over, like when it goes from AM to PM or something every 2 weeks? And if that's not the case, then you just leave it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of how I treated it, like that. Like if it's a fluke, it's a fluke. I mean, it happens. A bit can change, like, literally something can go into your processor.
It could be a glitch in an engine, a browser.
Yeah. It could be a million different things. And I don't treat them as serious bugs until they are fully reproducible, unless the intermittence is so often that it's a serious deterrent to actually completing the task, whatever the app is doing. So, and that's happened to me before, which sucked. And I had to go in. And those are the bugs that take me like days to fix. When it's intermittent and but it's constant. So like, instead of it being like, okay, every time you click this, and this, it happens. No, it's every time you either click this and this, or this and that, and this and that. And it can happen like when you load it or not load it, but it does happen. You know what I mean? Like it's an issue that does happen, but there's no like actual accurate way of reproducing it other than just clicking through the app and hoping for the best and hoping to catch like a bug report. So those issues do happen and they suck. And that's kind of what I'm treating my computer issue with, because I have had some hang up issues randomly. Like even when we're recording this podcast a couple times over the last like few months, it just crashed and we had to kind of pick up the recording. And I don't know what that is, and I can't reproduce it. So it might be a
something
Windows
as
thing.
Simple as like a USB device.
Yeah, absolutely. It could be a million different things. Like you were having issues with your mouse and it was extremely intermittent as well until you figured out that you could reproduce it. Right?
Yeah,
like,
so it was really weird. Like my mouse was rebooting. Like the actual mouse has a little screen on it and the mouse was rebooting, and that was causing my Audacity to have problems. and then it started like scrolling. It started auto scrolling itself. I tried switching ports because my motherboard has like an area for mouse and keyboard, so it has 2 USB 2s and then also a PS2, so that's kind of like where you put your mouse and keyboard. I've had it in there for years. This is a brand new mouse too, by the way, to replace the old one. Just kept rebooting. It wouldn't work. Plugged it into the front, it seemed to work, but then it kept scrolling. Plugged it into a different port, it seemed to work. So like it stopped rebooting, but it was still broken. I don't know what happened to it. Like, I unplugged that mouse, plugged a different mouse in, and it's a spare mouse, so it has its own fair share of problems, but it's not broken like that. So I don't know whether it's a driver problem. And I thought maybe it's the USB port. I plugged the keyboard into that USB port, and it's been plugged into the USB port all along, and the keyboard's totally fine. So it's not the USB port. I don't know. And I plugged it into the front, which is a different USB controller, and I have tons of USB things plugged in, and they're all fine. So it's one of those. It's one of those. And the mouse works fine, seemingly, on my laptop with limited testing. So I don't know. Bought a new mouse. I'm going to have to install that later, but it's totally new, and that's it. But to talk about my weekly pain point, it is my general status right now is what is going on. So we've said before that I'm trying to transition into doing more hat stuff every day, and every single day, and this is not an exaggeration, every single day something happens. And today, for example, it was 3-4 random emails, even things that like I haven't been talked to about in months, just suddenly came in to my inbox, and now we're all over the place. There's projects firing up, people are going crazy. Projects, like client projects are like firing up again, whatever. Like it's all over the damn place. We got weird problems on our social media. There's problems all over the place. So my status generally is just, what the hell is going on? There's a lot going on. I sent Mike an audiogram last night at 5 a.m, if you can even call it last night, because I just didn't have time otherwise to do it, so I just gave it to him at 5 a.m. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know, and I hope it slows down. But I'm going to jump into the segments here. So our first segment is going to be a little out of order of the title. So it's going to be, the first segment's going to be web apps, second going to be Sanity Io, 3 is going to be busy imposter syndrome, and then 4 is going to be Twitch streaming. Now, back to the web apps. So just this is sort of a general statement or opinion, or almost like a state of the industry, or like a state of web apps. I don't know. So these days there seems to be online solutions for everything, okay? From editing podcasts, remote recording, editing video, documents, media, all the rest of it. You can all do it in your browser for the most part. There's all kinds of solutions out there, and it's all very good. Now, the problem is that all of these tools are separate. Yes, there's exceptions, like, Google Google Sheets or whatever is obviously in like sort of the software suite of Google Docs, but like whatever. So obviously there's some differences here, but in general, all these tools are indeed separate, and there's always like a missing feature that you find. But when you go and find something that plugs that hole, everything's SaaS, software as a service. So then you're like, well, now you got to pay per month to plug a hole in a software that you already are paying per month, and that could be like a $20 a month charge easily. And we're talking, usually it's American, we're Canadian, so we pay more because our currency is worth less. So it's like a whole ordeal. Now, yes, it's only $20. You might be like, what the hell? But here's an example of something that we didn't want to pay for because it's so ridiculous. So most recently, we wanted to put together some hat clips, so clips of this show, so that people who are busy or just aren't acquainted with the show can listen to smaller clips that are more efficient in terms of timing than an entire podcast. And then all the while, we're of course letting them know, hey, full episodes are available, and if they like the clips enough, please come and and listen to the full episodes. So effectively, it's marketing and productivity. So that's really good. Now, to make these, I was thinking, okay, I want to have an audio wave animate just underneath, like in a frame. I don't know, maybe it'd be a square video, and it would animate underneath a basic image, our logo, or maybe some text with our episode name in there or something. And then I would post that to social media, and there you go. There's your marketing, there's your efficiency, all the rest of it. Now, while I was doing this, there's tons of online services out there, and a few of them, from what I could tell on their sort of marketing sites, they're very easy to use. No big deal. It'd be upload the audio, upload the picture, and that's it. But they all come with these limitations, like, oh, you can only have 3-minute audio, or like the free tier only allows you to have this, or hey, we don't have a free tier and you can only have 10 minutes of audio. Whatever. I'm just kind of like spitballing. But this is such a small piece of our strategy that it just seems ridiculous to me. And I don't mean to just come out and complain, but just to make a clip. So you take an already existing episode, of which we edit and put together in multiple pieces of software in some cases, and then we have to get another piece of software to take a clip of it and make it so that it's animated and goes online. Just seems ridiculous to me. And this is where the software as a service model almost falls apart, because now we have a problem of what are we doing? You know what I mean? You have to pay $20 a month just to have a little audio spectrum. Now, I'm not whining and that type of thing. I'm talking about, this is a very small problem and we ended up getting around it, okay? So I'm not whining in that regard. But think about this in terms of people who are doing media all the time or doing other things all the time. Every single time they have a hole in their software. So let's say they have the Creative Cloud and they have all the Adobe apps, whatever, the biggest package they can get. But let's say there's a hole in that package. There's some sort of feature they need. They're already paying a bunch of money per month, and now they got to pay per month again for this one little tiny hole. And that price for that one piece of software is going to be comparable to the Adobe stuff. Like, it might be 20% of the cost or something. And so it's like, am I really going to pay that 20% just for this small little thing? And I guess my question kind of is, and this is what I mean by the state of the industry, is I would love to use some of these web apps, and I'm sure there's a free solution out there that you might be thinking, Matt, you missed a free solution. I didn't do extensive research. This is a very small piece of what I want to do. And so I just came up with a solution with Canva, and I just moved on with my life. But for people that seriously need like a very specific solution, imagine the amount of monthly fees they're accruing. Like, could you imagine paying $20 a month just for audio spectrums when it's something that's an aside? It might be totally reasonable because maybe there's a lot of computing power involved. I don't know much about audio in that regard. And obviously the devs need to make their money, and I'm not saying anything about that. And maybe we'll have something like that sometime. But maybe we'll have something that's $20 a month for one feature. Who knows, right? But it just seems to me like you're missing out on my business because I'm not willing to pay per month because it's such a small piece of the pie. Whereas in the past, if it was like, this is $100, I'd be like, eh. But if we do it every day, and you're like, this is going to save me some time, $100 one time, sure, let's do it. So then you would eventually sort of get my business in most cases. So this is more of a comment on, this is almost ecosystems, almost something along those lines.
I think SaaS subscriptions in general, it seems to be a comment on SaaS as a business model.
SaaS is a big problem. It's a big problem. Because you have companies that are just purely document processors. They'll merge PDFs. They'll allow you to change PDFs online. Whatever their software offering is, they'll do documents. Maybe they'll allow you to change some pictures around really rudimentarily, hopefully that's a word, to put inside of PDFs and that, but for the most part they focus on PDFs. And PDFs are complex in their own right, and I'm not saying that company needs to branch out and do audio editing and everything else. But the fact that everything is $5, $10, $20 a month, and then for us it's closer to $30 after paying exchange and all the rest of it, it's really are you, people put their nose up at Disney Plus or something, and yet to make some audio spectrums, it's $20 a month, And again, that could be totally justified, but just in terms of the amount of stuff we already have, I have Magix, which is the people that bought Vegas. So I used to have Sony Vegas and upgraded to Magix Movie Studio or whatever they call it. I have that. We have Audacity, free. We have Zoom, the Pro one or whatever, one of the payment plans in Zoom. We have Office 365, which we pay, or which I have a personal account, so I have all my personal stuff on Microsoft. But then we also have Office 365 Business for each of our accounts. So we have Teams and we have all that stuff. So all that stuff's per month. Then you gotta account into the fact that What else do we have? We have what's that software called? Photoshop. Couldn't think of it. We have Photoshop. We also have GIMP, to be clear. We have that as well. We have and a lot of the stuff's open source. A lot of the stuff is great, but it's just a matter of it being like, holy crap! Like, whenever I Google a solution, there's a solution almost always, and that's really great. It means the web is progressing. But the amount per month is really throwing me for a loop just because it's combined with a whole bunch of other stuff. If it wasn't, and making auto inspections was $20 a month and everything else was paid, like Magix, for example, I paid once for that. That's not a subscription. So that's fine. That's a downloaded program. That's not a web app, right? GIMP, not a web app. It's also free. Doesn't matter. Stuff like that. But like if we had Photoshop, if we needed Lightroom for a project, if we had to use, I don't know, some sort of Discord thing or whatever, it doesn't matter. Like if we had to pay for some sort of Discord bot or something along those lines, it's just getting to the point where it's like a slippery slope of subscriptions. And people say that on personal use. They're like, man, all these subscriptions in terms of streaming services like Netflix, Prime Video, blah, 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 goes on and on and on and on and on and on. They're getting to be the point where they're getting close to, if not sometimes surpassing, the price of cable, of which they were supposed to replace, like cable television. But now look at what's happening here. I don't know. I feel like this is one of those topics where I feel like I'm whining, but it's something I wanted to like bring into attention, because open source software is great, and like oftentimes that's the solution. But there's so many of these random edge cases I find, and like I said, the most recent one is the Auto Spectrum one, where like, is this the state of the web? Like, are we paying for, like, we pay for Balsamic, right? Which is totally fine. We do wireframes. But, like, it's not, we didn't just pay for Balsamic and download it. We're on Balsamic Cloud. That's per month. So it's like, we're paying for Balsamic Cloud. We're paying for Zoom. We're using Canva a whole bunch. The free version. We're probably going to end up paying for Canva. And we're talking about software that just a few years ago was, you know, a couple $100 or something here and there, depending on, you know, I just mentioned a whole bunch of types of software. So let's say it's a couple $100 on average, and then you would just own it, and then you could either upgrade later or what have you. But those days are gone, and I get it. You can say there's server costs because they're constantly live, and you're constantly getting the greatest updates, and that's all well and good. And you're right. You are right in that regard. But there's too many holes in these expensive softwares, and then these holes are being plugged by too high of price softwares to justify it, and now I just don't have an audio spectrum, and that's fine, but it's just, there's a UX problem there. Yeah,
I think, okay, so to kind of break it down into two categories for me right now for web apps and in general SaaS model. One thing, there's just too many different technologies and different web apps that I have to use on a daily basis if I want to get a project from ground, like from zero to, you know, production. Like I have to, you know, there's a lot of steps right now. Like to build something, I'm using Vue.js, right? Like that's a web technology. It's not a web app, but it is a technology. That's one thing that I have to kind of know and have to maintain and have to, you know, get the repo and updates and all that. Like that's a whole system of stuff. And then on top of that, on top of Vue.js, there's a Vue CLI, which is separate, which helps me build the Vue.js project, right? That's just one thing. And then I have Tailwind inside of that. So that's another web technology. Again, I'm not talking about SaaS, but it's like this conglomeration of things going on in there. And then there's all the plugins that I'm using, which again, in the last episode, if you haven't listened to it, I have limited the amount of plugins I'm using to simplify the complexity of my projects because it was getting out of hand. So now I have like one or two extra plugins on top of what I have in Vue.js. Just to make sure that it's maintainable. But regardless, like I still have those plugins. And then to like actually code that, I have VS Code, which is technically a web app, right? Like it's built with web technologies. So to use, and then VS Code itself has like 15 million plugins that I have that's slowing it down and everything. It's becoming kind of a mess, even though my computer is really good. VS Code is now becoming a little bit slower for me. And now I'm trying to think of like, do I need to get rid of extensions or plugins? So now I'm thinking about those plugins. And then I have services that I'm paying for, like hosting services like Netlify or DigitalOcean, like we're actually paying money for those for the most part to manage content, because they're how they operate. So Netlify, for instance, they had a very good free tier at some point. Where you could build as much as you wanted, and as long as you had kind of like only one person working on a project or something like that, it gave you so many things like a build notification and stuff like that. They've slowly, and this is a strategy that companies use, they've slowly started to take away stuff from the free tier. So now you can only build for like 200 minutes a month. So as soon as you start building multiple branches, which is on by default, I think, it really adds up. So if you have a team working on a project and they start, committing and pushing branches, it builds for each branch. That 200 minutes gets eaten up. Like I've already gotten to a point where I couldn't use Netlify anymore, and I had to pay for it. So that's another thing. Like, so you have to manage your subscription model there. Then if you're talking about like a custom headless CMS, like Sanity Io has a generous free tier. But again, you have to manage that subscription model, because as soon as you break that free tier, you've got to start paying, and you got to understand like, okay, should I be paying for this? Because am I making money on this? Am I not making money on this? So that's another thing that I have to manage. So it just becomes to the point where it's like I'm managing, and I haven't even mentioned everything, but like I'm managing 200 different plugins, different web apps, different technologies, all to get like, maybe sometimes it's not a simple site, but to get like, logic up on the web. And yes, a lot of these technologies are making my life easier in a lot of different ways, but none of them can do everything well. I always have to reach for something else. Like it's always that. And it's an endless reach for something else. Like it essentially never ends unless I guess you're finished and like sunset the project. Because even like a year down the line, you've produced the project. All of a sudden you're like, wait, I need analytics. And then you're like, oh, Google Analytics isn't doing it enough for me. So now I have to subscribe to an analytics platform that's better than Google Analytics. And now I have to implement that platform, update everything to make sure it supports it. Then I have compatibility errors because I have 50 million plugins in there, and the analytics plugin is now not working. And then all of a sudden my deploy, my like Netlify stops working or something like that. So now I have to go to a different, like it's a nonstop battle, really, with all these different technologies that are trying to help you, and for the most part doing a really good job at helping you. And I think it's kind of like the idea of like it's still kind of the Wild West in the web industry. Nothing's been really solidified yet, so it has a lot of positives and negatives. Like, yes, there's tons of new technologies, there's tons of opportunities. Like if we wanted to make something for the web, it's still possible for us to get in there and get people to use it. Whereas if it was more of a solidified, tech stack that worked 100% of the time, like if everyone was using React.js to do all of their work, including like maybe React builds their own IDE, right? Like maybe React builds their own, like they already have their own native, like being able to deploy to phones and Android. Maybe they just put everything into React and all of a sudden React becomes the web. I'm just giving a hypothetical. It would be really hard for us to go in and build something that complements or like that, does something that React already does and already has 1 million people using or 10 million people using, whatever. So in one way, it's great. There's all these different technologies. There's all this choice. There's all this innovation. In the other way, like, yeah, you have to manage it. You have to pay for some. You have to make sure that your licensing is correct on others. You have to manage the free tiers. Like managing free tiers is a whole like other topic that we can talk about, like how to manage free tiers to get the most out of your free trials. But again, you have to be careful because all these companies have the intention of getting as many users as possible on their free tier and then slowly phasing out free features. And
to a limit, like some have done it to their limit now, in which
Absolutely.
The free tier is solidified, at least for the time being, or at least indefinitely until the situation changes. But you are right, if it looks too good to be true, it's usually too good to be true. Exactly.
Like there's just, like Netlify couldn't keep up what they were doing. Like they were giving us too much for free and everyone knew it. And everyone was taking advantage of it because they knew that it was going to end at some point. And then it ended. And it's still okay. Like it's still like for a personal project, I don't think you're going to have any problems still. But as soon as you bring on a team, which is what they wanted, they want to be like, okay, if you have a team, that means you have a budget. It means you can pay for Netlify. And yes, it's true. Like it does solve a lot of problems for you. So it's worth that like $40 a month or whatever it is. Like it is pretty expensive, but it solves like continuous integration and hosting all at the same time for you. So it's, and A/B testing, I think. Like it has a lot of little things that it can solve for you, which is why it has a bigger price tag. But
which is great for websites that are monetized where they have a subscription that's $20 a month. So two customers effectively, have just paid for all those features.
Yes, exactly. And like that's the other thing is like, because you're paying for so many subscriptions, if you're a company, it makes sense for you to also use a subscription model because you need to pay for your stuff monthly. So it's better to get money coming in every month. Because if you do the $100 for a lifetime license kind of thing, you can have a really good month and then invest that money back into your company and then have a terrible month 3 months later and not be able to pay for your monthly subscriptions. Like that's a realistic possibility. Yeah, but if everyone's paying you $20 a month, then you know how much you're going to get the next month. So you know how much, how many other stuff you can subscribe for to pay for it. Because a lot of subscriptions, like Matt and I are talking about small change stuff. But if we're talking like CRMs or massive marketing platforms, stuff like that, you're talking like hundreds of dollars a month. You're talking thousands of dollars a month. So you need to account for that. That's a subscription model.
We found a CMS where $8,000 wouldn't cut it.
Yeah. And
I'm talking Canadian dollars. We found a CMS. I'm not going to call people out. I'm 100% serious. $8,000 might not have cut it for the license we would have needed. It may, could have went to 12, could have went to 20 pretty easy, and we'd be like cutting some stuff. I'm not joking. I'm actually 100% serious.
Yeah. And that's common. Like there's multiple of those CMSs that like handle a lot of stuff for you. There's a reason why they cost so much, because they handle a lot of things for you that a regular CMS wouldn't be able to, that you would probably have to hire essentially like a team to manage.
Or buy a premium plugin if it was WordPress, and then you got to deal with all that stuff.
Yeah. So it does come with a lot of benefits, that $8,000 or $10,000 a month. But it's legit. Like you're talking real money here. Like you got to be making a considerable amount more per month, not as a one-time payment, per month than $10,000 to be able to afford these kinds of things. And there's a lot more. Like as you grow, like Matt's saying, you start using more and more of these services. A lot of the times, like nowadays, $5 a month, no one cares about, but all of a sudden you're subscribed to 15, 20, 30 different applications at $5 a month. And you're going hundreds of dollars, and you don't even use half of them. Literally. Like most of these subscription models rely on people subscribing and not even using.
My credit card, like business credit card at the end of the month, like just to jump in there real quick, my business credit card at the end of the month, my credit card, business one, covers most of the subscription fees we do. Every month, it's like a whole bunch of money, and I don't even know half the time what it was. Like half the time, I'm just like, where the hell did half of this like money go?
Yeah.
And it's because like some crazy amount of subscriptions came in, and it's like, holy crap, like a bunch of these things were quarterly, or maybe I signed up per year, and then it just so happened that 2 or 3 of them came in this month, and it's $300-$400. And we got people that or some clients that scoff at $20. We're paying expense wise more than $100 a month, which doesn't sound like a lot, but clients don't realize that because they think you're a digital company, you're fine, you're on the computer. That ain't the case.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just a lot of things like that. But yeah, I think it was a good rant. I think it was a good topic to cover because I think everyone's experiencing it, and it's just a little bit overwhelming. I think we have to manage it a little bit better, but in the other sense, like how? I don't have a good answer for that. Like, how do you manage all of your web subscriptions, web apps, and stuff like that? Maybe there's a product there. You know what I mean? Like a product that just brainstorming that literally will, maybe you can manually, initially, like MVP wise, manually enter a subscription with when it renews, and it can manage it for you, and it will remind you that you have the subscription, and do you still need it or not? And then maybe you have at some point integrations to be able to unsubscribe from stuff right from that app, or at least go to the page to unsubscribe or something like that. So like because it's a legit problem. Managing subscriptions.
It's a legit problem.
It's a legit problem because I don't know when my subscriptions are up. I don't even know what subscriptions I have. Like that's a true statement. Like, because we sometimes we go down a tangent and we're like, we really need this right now, and we use it for a few months and it was really helpful. But then all of a sudden we're on to 3 different projects, and those projects take priority, and we don't use that whatever we're paying for.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope, and you can enter it. You can enter it professionally, and you can enter it personally with things like Netflix and that, like I've said. And the UX of just paying is often better. You know, the UX of paying for stuff is just like I have a friend who refuses to pay for cloud storage. He manages things where he like pipes things through Dropbox, and then that goes into this server, and then this thing goes over here, and then that thing comes back, and then this thing goes all the way over here, and then it's like it's all over the place. Meanwhile, I just said I've had it with this. I ain't doing this anymore, and I just said that's it, and I just bought an Office 365 personal subscription. You know, effectively I caved, and I really enjoy it, and I use it all the time. But it's the same type of thing. Like Xbox Game Pass is a prime example, where Xbox Game Pass is all about said this, but it's a really good price. Chances are it's gonna go up.
100%. It's not. There's no chances. It's 100% going to go up because what it gives you is way too much for the $5 a month that we pay. Like you pay a little bit more, but you have the gold. But even like I pay $5 for the Xbox one, not to go on a tangent, and I get like significant amount of day one releases for free. Like Crusader Kings 3 just came out. And I know this is probably like a mistake or something, but the only way to get it other than Game Pass is a $2,500 purchase on Microsoft Store.
Oh, you were sending me that earlier.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier today. It's just like, but regardless of that, the game's like $80. The game, it came out today, and I have it for like not for free, but in my $5 subscription, as well as another game that came out today, which is Wasteland 3. Like, that's happened multiple times now where the day one games have been included into that Game Pass. So it's 100% going to go up. And there's a lot of services like that that you have to watch out for as well. Like it's great that it is that right now. And it'll be awesome if they like keep it at $5 for the people that are paying right now. But like I'm kind of skeptical on that. I think that at some point they're going to have to increase even our pricing. But. Yeah,
because that's a good question. Because I'm just thinking through, like they have not to get into the weeds of Xbox Game Pass, but it's like they have a rotating library of sort of third-party games. But if it's a game Microsoft's been involved in, like an Xbox Game Studio game or whatever, you get it day one, which is like a huge savings effectively because if you're downloading it, you're kind of like purchasing it. So then therefore, like if your Xbox Game Pass is $15 a month, let's just say, shooting out numbers at random, you're saving a bunch because in Canada games are $79.99 before tax. So
saving a lot of money.
Well, because I was going to say, like, you have to, like, think about, there's no free tier here, so there's that. But you have to think about, is the price going to go up by how much? Because technically, all those third-party games are rotating like Netflix. So, they, like, some come, some go every month. Or however the schedule works, some come, some go, just like Netflix. Whereas, like, the Netflix originals stay. So, these are, like, almost like, quote-unquote, the Xbox originals. They stay. So, at some point, like, are we already paying enough? Are we not? That's a good question. Speaking of weird glitches, I just had a weird glitch. My recording dropped out, and I found out it was because some random service just took off with 90% of my CPU. So thank you to that random service that I just killed that literally did nothing to the computer. So thank you for that. So I'll be using my backup audio, which is lesser quality, which is just great. So thanks a lot there, random service. I know what service it was. I'm not going to call out the company. Thanks a lot, bud. But it's getting uninstalled now. It's done now. That's it. It sent me an ad this morning. I'm just going to say it. It sent me an ad this morning. It sent me an ad this afternoon. And it tried to do something to me once, and then it just did something.
I kind of want you to call them out. Can you call them out?
I'm not going to call them out. I'm not going to call them out.
Do it.
No, because I am going to use them in the future.
So?
It was a type of antivirus.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's
I don't have.
So it just went. It was like, oh, like I guess it thought like, oh, you're on Zoom. We better scan that data. Woo! And then like went nuts and started going crazy. And then it sent me an ad. God, because I just solved it. Like I'm looking at the stats. Like I've solved it statistically. So that software now, that's what you get. I know this is off topic. That's what you get. You get one chance. Your app sends me a notification at the wrong time. I've uninstalled my SMS app. I get an SMS at the wrong time. Oh, no problem. It's no skin off my back. Log in, hold it down, uninstall. Yes, moving on with my life. You don't send me a notification at the wrong time, and I know that's impossible, but that's the way I treat apps.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's.
But this,
those poor app developers.
This is legitimate. Yeah, like I'm the one like dot off of their line of best fit.
Yeah.
Where they're like, why the hell did this guy use the app for 40 hours and then uninstall it like with no incident? And it was because someone else sent me a text. But anyway, so I just fixed my computer in some regard. Anyway, moving on with that. Oh, it's your segment, Mike. I was gonna say.
I think let's move on to my segment, which is about another web technology / web app, I guess. Sanity Io. So I didn't we've done an episode, I think we've definitely done an episode on Sanity. We even had one of the community managers, or the main community manager, Knut, come on and answer some of our questions and give us some good feedback and stuff like that. So that was great. You can check that episode out in our backlog. But I just wanted to, I've been using Sanity a little bit more lately because I've been actually Twitch streaming and creating a little blog site for myself with Sanity as the headless CMS. And then some other technology called Gridsome, which is a Vue.js thing on the front end. I'm not going to talk about that yet. I have a little bit more stuff to be done. But Sanity has been really surprising to me. Like, it's been really easy to use. Their documentation, that's one of the big things that I look for in a technology that's not maybe as popular. Like, if I'm going to be using something that's not on the level of Vue.js or React, it better have really good documentation, because that's what I'm going to be relying on. Because like Googling is just not going to work in a lot of these cases. So you're going to have to either rely on good technology and a really good dev team, which is another really big plus for Sanity. I've noticed that they're extremely responsive. I've personally had conversations with a few of them. I know a few Twitch streams ago, I was streaming just randomly, that blog project, and one of the developers from Sanity jumped on, like one of the community developers. And we had like a good back and forth session where he took me through on how to use one of their plugins with like the Gridsome that I'm using, which is something that's never been done before. And we did it all live on stream, which was an awesome experience. So again, we've had a lot of conversations with them. We're not sponsored by them in any way whatsoever, so I have no obligation to say it.
He's lying to you. No, we're not sponsored.
Yeah, we're not sponsored, but like it's been a good experience using it because it's just so easy to pick up. It's like a one-click blog template creator for the backend, and then it just outputs a API that's really easily queryable. They have their own query language, and then they also support GraphQL, which is like a big query language that most people, or a query. It's not even a query language, but it has like other stuff built back behind it. But it supports both those things, and it's really easy to get the data that you need from the CMS that you have created with one click, essentially. And then not only that, you can go in and using their JSON structure, you can change the schema to kind of help your UX. So I know, Matt, you really are like a proponent of like hand-holding yourself, or even people that are going to be, guest posting on your CMS to do stuff, right? So this, like for Sanity, it becomes really easy, like to add a Boolean to see if this is featured, for instance, for featured content. You literally just like add a JavaScript object with the type of Boolean, give it a name, and it immediately appears on all your posts. And you can go back, like even the posts that you've already created, you can go back and set them to true or false. And in any new post, it'll prompt you to make sure that you set that featured, whatever you name it, to true or false. And when you query it on the front end, it'll be sent over with the payload of that post, and you can do whatever the heck you want with it.
Yeah, I'm definitely a big. Sorry to jump in, but like I'm definitely a big proponent of holding your user's hand, because we've seen several times where you give the user a page builder capability in something like WordPress. So WordPress has, in my opinion, two problems, but I still like WordPress. It's fine. One problem is that it's very generic in its default stance. So you need a plugin to add things like toggle switches in that. And the toggle switches in that are what really allow you to handhold your user. If they want to have posts that sometimes have a thumbnail and some that don't, that toggle switch is critical. Or just an auto-detecting thing where they either upload an image or not. But they need to have some sort of logic in there. And from what I've seen, which is not like a ridiculous amount, but what I've seen of Sanity, it helps with that. Webflow is the same type of thing. Webflow CMS, same type of thing. Toggle switches, levers, whatever. Not literally levers, that's a joke, but, toggle switches, buttons, drop downs, those type of things. Those are really hand-holdy. And so what I'm trying to do is make it so that the user can only mess up their content. They can upload the wrong image, maybe the wrong resolution even. If I could stop that, I would, but the wrong resolution or something. They can only make those mistakes. And they're obviously their mistakes. And so then I can redirect them even if they call me and say, hey, you uploaded an image that's wrong. They're not going to accidentally break the whole page. When it comes to those page builders, as I mentioned before, we've seen users try to build a new nav bar with a page builder, and there's crap everywhere. We recently fixed a website where there were 3 search bars all on the same page. I don't even know why they were there. There was one at the bottom, all the way at the bottom. I think that one was forgotten. There was one all the way at the top, and there was one somewhere else.
Yeah.
So
it's just weird.
Just snip. I think I have 2 now, one mobile, one desktop, whatever, due to styles, and that's it. And so, like, it's really nice and sometimes required for a user to have a page builder. Sometimes their data, their marketing or whatever changes so quickly that they need to have a page builder. So that's why those exist. But a page builder is, like, realistically, in my opinion, a better dev tool than a user tool. Because now I can rapidly spin them something up. It saves me time, effectively saving them money, and saving me frustration as well. So.
Exactly. Yeah, and Sanity Io doesn't have a page builder as far as I understand it. It's more just like literally a separated, disconnected backend service for your site. But it has a lot of other stuff like, again, I think they just introduced the ability to kind of work on content together at the same time, so you can both be working on the same post and it'll kind of live update, kind of like Google Docs. So that's a cool little feature that they've just added and stuff like that. Like, they're continually working on it. They're a good company as far as I can see, ethics wise. So, like, it's just, I don't know, they were good. So the other thing that I wanted to mention just quickly, and I don't want to throw shade or anything, but it was just a weird experience that I had, was I was choosing between 2 headless CMSs. One was Sanity Io and the other one was Titanic. And, like, to install Sanity, there was a very clear explanation on what to do to get it going. And it was really simple. Like, you literally just install the npm install for Sanity, and then you run like a develop command or like a start command or create a new project command. There's like a very simple command, and it does all the stuff for you. With Statamic, and again, not trying to throw shade or anything, but it was just a weird experience where I went in there, and I'm a Windows user, and they're like, okay, you need to have Composer installed. And then I'm like, okay, I'm a Windows user. How do I do that? And their instruction is like, if you're a Windows user, you have to Google it. But here's the instructions for Mac OS and Linux. So that was like, I guess that's it. Like, I can't, like, I don't want to go through another process. If I'm deciding between the two, like, I'm sure Statamic is a great CMS, and I have nothing against it because it looks really cool and it looks like a good service. And to promote it a little bit, it has a one-time license fee. You don't have to pay for it per month. So I think it's like $150, and that's your, like, you can use that website however you want, that, like, the hosting and all, like, I don't think it's not the hosting, but their CMS and all that, one-time fee, which is cool.
Well, the benefit is of Sanity as well, just to, like, bring this in too, is the reason why they don't have a page builder is because they're separate. So when a user wants to change platform, if they're on WordPress or they're on Webflow or they're on any other service, all that stuff is all together, right? Like, WordPress is the back end, and then yes, there's some, like, separation with, like, themes and such, but if the user really drastically wants to change the look of the site, it's difficult to do that when the system is all together, like Webflow is all together. So yes, you can salvage the data because the data is sort of generic-ish, and then you can plug it in differently, but you're basically rebuilding it. But, like, Sanity, it's just sort of like, oh, you want a brand new website? Okay. And you don't even touch the data. You don't even really need to worry about it. And then you just call it again. That's sort of why there's no page builder, which makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like it's a great feature, and you can write stuff to Sanity as well. Like, it's not only reading. You can write posts and stuff so you can build your own interface for Sanity. You can build your own little, like, platform to create comments, for instance. I think I saw this on their YouTube channel recently, where they went in and created comments from your site, so you can actually ping your headless CMS and create like a comment post from your site without having to go to Sanity. So it has those kind of flexibility options. The only thing I couldn't figure out, and if any Sanity developer or like employees listening right now, I would love to talk to you and reach out and maybe do a project together, is how to manage like a user database. So let's say you have like a membership site, or you have like a bunch of users that are going to be logging into your site. How do you do that with Sanity? That's the only thing I couldn't figure out. There might be a way to do it, or it might just be beyond the scope of the project, which is totally fine. But I'm just curious if that's something that's been thought about or not. But other than that, like it's been a cool experience working with it. So I just wanted to bring it up again. I'll talk a little bit later in the segments to follow about Twitch streaming, but it's kind of that's kind of what brought me back into it.
And with that, then I think I'll just jump right into the other thing. Other than the fact that I don't appreciate, what was it, Statamic? I don't appreciate that Statamic didn't have those clear Windows instructions, and as a result, I can't use that. But anyway, because I'm a Windows man through and through, I'm on Windows right now. I was just cursing a process, so come on, Statamic, write those docs. And actually, Mike and I, on a completely unrelated software, just had a conversation about how like a forum expert or a staff member of some, and this is not Statamic, this is a completely different software I'm talking about right now, just said like, oh, like I've answered this question on the forum before, please Google it. Why don't you just copy and paste your answer? Like, these people are paying for your software. Anyway.
Nope.
Or, I mean, there is an open source option, so maybe they're not, but like, you could have just copied and pasted it anyway, free or not. I don't know. Just saying. I hate the solution of just Google it. It's like, oh, thanks, bud. Like, let me just downvote myself.
And even worse is I know the answer, but you can just Google it. If you know the answer and you've went through the effort of writing the fact that you know the answer, you can easily just copy paste your answer from somewhere.
There used to be that thing too, like, I don't know if it still exists, where it was called "Let me Google that for you." And you send the person a link and it would Google it for them. Yeah.
That still exists.
People are dicks. Like, it's not good. Yeah. Like, just straight up. But I'm going to jump into the next segment before this gets too off the rails, and just in terms of timing. So, busy imposter syndrome. So, this is a personal problem that I'm having currently, and I've had it for a little bit. Everyone seems to be doing a bunch of different skills right beside me, literally like my same team, and I don't know the skills they're doing. They're doing advanced JS crap. There's PHP all over the place. There's Vue.js, Webpack, Gatsby.js, friggin' WordPress, like, I know a little bit of all these type of things, but I don't know a lot about all these type of things. I feel like I should know these things, but it's not like a guilt feeling, because it's not like I'm being lazy, because I'm really busy. So I feel like I'm an imposter, but like clearly I'm in demand because I'm busy. It's not like I have to pass something to Mike and then wait 3 weeks for him to get back to me. It's like I pass something to Mike if I don't understand it, but then I go and I still have a bunch of crap to do. So I'm in this weird... Do you know what it feels like too, actually? And here's what it is if I look at like if everything goes horribly, and like all of a sudden like Mike and I have to get regular jobs, I don't think I'm at the level where I could be like a web dev in an agency. I'm more of like a small business, like, jack of all trades at this point, where I'm like dealing with our taxes, dealing with accountants, and then I'm like running over and talking to clients, and then I'm running over and talking even to like government agencies in some cases, depending on project, and I'm running over and talking to a whole bunch of people, and then I'm like running back and then like jerry-rigging solutions, and then coordinating with a developer, and then running over and talking to somebody else, to the point where if someone was like, come in here and use like React to do this, I'd be like, and that should be basic, but I'm not. It's strange because I'm not in that developer role, but I'm also not a marketing expert. And then I'm stuck in this world of like, I need to be marketing because of hat, and I need to be marketing all this. But it's the problem of many hats in a small business, but I haven't mastered any of the hats, if that makes sense. Like, I was watching Web Dev Simplified, shout out to that guy, and he did a video that I watched a few, but I watched one video where he did sort of like, and I'm paraphrasing, it's sort of like the noob, the intermediate, and the pro in like 3 different situations. So he had like a few, or like the 3 different types in different situations. So he gave a few different programs, and he's like, this is how a noob would program it. This is how an intermediate coder would program it. And this is how like a pro coder would do it. I don't know if I'm using the same language as him, but you get the point. And like a lot of that crap, like I'm in the noob tier. Now he explained the other stuff and I understood it. Like that's what I mean by jack of all trades. Like he explained it and I understood it. It's not like I don't know what I'm doing. It's not like to that degree. Clearly I'm doing something. Like Mike just saw something I jerry-rigged together today. And boy, is that thing a jerry-rig. But it worked. And it would only have worked if I knew what I was doing. But I don't know where I stand. And again, this is probably why we didn't make some of these things full episodes. Because I feel like I'm whining again. Because we were like, just sit down and do React then, you idiot. I can't. I'm literally running around my head cut off, and I'm not going to be working all day and night. It ain't going to happen. Sorry, guys. Like, so I don't know. If today was the day we had to go reapply, I'd probably go back to IT. And even then, I'm rusty. Even then, I'm like, okay. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, it's like, oh, we use Docker for this now. Hey, I never did that. Like, you know, like.
Don't get me started on the Docker conversation. That's a whole other web app technology that went right over my head. But okay, so just to tackle your stuff, the thing I think that is disconnected here is that you are doing a lot of different things at the same time. And it's probably, like, one of the reasons is probably too much. Like there's just too much on your plate from different avenues, right? So that is a problem. That's not allowing you to learn and be in that environment of being able to, you know, pick up the technologies that you want to learn or that you need to learn, and stuff like that. But the other thing is that, like, I feel like everyone has this feeling because no one can be a master at all these things. Like I've been working with Vue.js for a while, but there are certain things in Vue.js that I don't know how to do, or I'm not a master at, or I'm not good at all. Even though I'm just talking Vue.js now. Like I've literally been Vue.jsing for 2 years, I think now, which is pretty big because of how old Vue.js is. It's not that old. And I'm not, like, I know it enough, but I definitely wish I knew it better at all times. And then everything else, like Webpack. Yes, Webpack, like Vue.js runs on uses Webpack to run and stuff like that, but I don't know what to do with it.
Oh, so,
like,
you don't know about Webpack, because like Webpack is one of those things that give me anxiety.
Yeah, Webpack gives me anxiety too. Like if I have to go in there and change things, like I've had to do it. Like I've absolutely had to go into the Webpack config and change things. And with Vue.js, there's like different ways that you can get into the Webpack config, because there's a Vue config file and then there's like a config file in general that you can manipulate. And the Vue config file, I think, writes into the Webpack config, and it's like, again, there's different syntax to like chain Webpack commands. Like it gets so intense that if we had to do a lot of Webpack stuff, I would just hire a Webpack developer to do it, because I don't think I could, with everything else on my plate, just like you, there's no way I could go in and learn Webpack to be able to create my own Webpack script from scratch.
And like, what actually brought this segment on was, whoa, man, I'm bumping everything, was my lack of hand control. But what brought this on recently, like, it's been sort of something in the back of my mind, this busy imposter syndrome. But what's brought this recently is because on Medium, I think it was a recommended article or something, where it said, we're going to use Webpack to do something. I forget what it was. And it was like beginners, like, whatever, to Webpack and React. And I thought, well, that's something that I would like to stream eventually, because I always hear about React.js, and I understand what React is, but I've never used it. And I thought, well, I want to learn, like, effectively on stream, I'll learn, like, a little more JS than I know, get a little better with that, and then maybe I'll branch into React or something. Just sort of future planning, spitballing. I want to learn about this. So I said, I know nothing. Like, I know enough JS to know what I'm talking about effectively, like, for the most part. I know enough React to know what it is and, like, what it's used for. but I know nothing about Webpack. So I thought, this is a perfect article. I'm going to read this. That article like made me like more anxious than ever. It was like, oh, we need to pack this and this and this, but since we're using React, we need to pack this, and then because we have this plugin, we have to pack this thing in here, and then we get this thing packing this, and I was like, wait a second. If we think about this, I don't even know React yet. This is to get the project to go, like, so I can begin. And then I was thinking, because I think it was like an example project or something. And I was thinking to myself, well, if I was thinking of doing this way, I would just be using all vanilla. And then I was thinking, am I an idiot? Like, should I not be using vanilla? And then that's what led me to that Web Dev Simplified video where I was like, maybe I am an idiot because all my code looks like crap, apparently. And then I started freaking out about that, and I was like, what am I doing? But then I was also thinking to myself, well, I literally have a bunch of tasks laid up tomorrow that I'm going to be able to do, so I must know what I'm doing. And then I watched another Web Dev Simplified video, I think I just watched it piecemeal, where he was talking about CSS things, and I was like, oh, great, here we go. I mean, maybe I'm an idiot in CSS now, too. And then I knew a bunch of the crap that he said was advanced CSS, and I was like, oh, so am I okay then? Like, some of the stuff in CSS I just don't use much, so I've forgotten it, but I can look it up. But, like, some of the stuff is more advanced. Like, I think one of the things he said was just straight up Flexbox. And I was like, oh, well, that's child's play for me now. So it's like, oh, so I guess I do know some advanced things. And then, like, Mike couldn't get Docker and stuff working, but because of my, like, sysadmin knowledge, I figured it out. But, I don't know, it's so, like, it's such a weird feeling because one of my strengths is jumping around like this. I can jump around like this and actually not get stressed out. And I'm actually just generally an anxious person. I cannot get stressed out by jumping around like this. It doesn't bother me. But now the like lack of being a master of something is bothering me. And to the point where realistically, if you really think about it, if like I'm sure Mike can even attest to this, or maybe you can comment on this, Mike, is like if we had to apply for jobs today, what jobs do I qualify for? Well, it ain't developer. Or maybe it is. I call myself a developer. I don't know.
So it's that thing where, like, can you solve the problem? If someone were to give you a technological problem, can you solve it? Whether it be like having to learn a technology from scratch or having to use your already predefined skills to solve it, like that's where like the engineering side comes in. There's a lot of little things that you have to specialize in if you want to become like a senior developer in a very specific platform. So like if you want to become, if you want to be really good in the image identification stream, so you want to be able to AI an image, and you want to, that's your specialty, then you have to be really good at a lot of different kind of math problems. And you have to be really good at understanding how algorithms work and understanding a lot of very specific technologies, right? And becoming a master at them, essentially. If you want to be that senior engineer at I'm just trying to think, like a Google engineer that is in charge of their Google Lens feature would have to be fairly good at all those things, right? Like really good, way above my level, way above your level, most likely way above a lot of people's levels. But as a regular developer, like a developer that would just go in and work on like a project, it's not like, it's about how you pick up the skills, not so much what you know right now. Now, one thing I will mention is that if I were to go on the job hunt today, as a hypothetical, I would have a very big issue because I don't have a lot of GitHub projects live to be able to have a portfolio. So my first thing to do, like if I were to be laid off today, my first thing to do would be to create full stack GitHub projects in the technologies that I want to work in. And that would be it. But I don't have that right now. So technically I'm not quote unquote employable in that sense, other than with like a reference or something like that. So I'm in the same boat as you, Matt. Like that's what I'm trying to say.
But like I think you would interview better in terms of like skills.
But it depends on what the job would be. Like if it's a layout thing, if I'm going in for building layouts, front end development, layout development, I wouldn't. You would be the one that goes and does the CSS and HTML structure way better than me because I'm not that good at it. Animation stuff, I'm not that good at. Design stuff, I'm not that good at. I wouldn't be able to interview design. I wouldn't be able to interview, like I would do okay with UX, but only on a rudimentary scale. Like I wouldn't be able to create a whole UX platform for a massive application. What I would interview decently with is like, yes, Vue.js. If it's a Vue.js project, I could probably, do a decent interview. But again, that's one technology stack. What else would I be? Like regular JavaScript? Yeah, I probably would be okay, but I haven't done it in a very long, like in a little while, so I would definitely have to read up on it. And regardless of the interview, I would still be reading up on the technology that they're using, and I would prep for the interview just like you would. Getting those interviews would be a challenge because of the fact that I don't have enough, like just being honest, I don't have enough GitHub experience. I don't have enough of my own personal projects out there that I can show off. Like most of the projects that I work on are under NDAs and I can't show them off. So I don't know, like there's not much if I were to be laid off today.
You can state that, I suppose, in a cover letter. I don't know. I'm not an employment expert, so I wouldn't be able to say whether that's wise.
But who are they going to take? Someone that can't show them any projects or someone that can show them a bunch of projects that
that's fair.
They have worked. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yes, I can state whatever the heck I want on the cover letter and I would, but it's still one of those things that like, it's still a hindrance to me for if I were to looking for a job. So I don't know if I could get, and this is part of my own imposter syndrome. I don't know if I could get like a developer job, a regular developer job. I'm not even like maybe junior developer, yes, but not like a regular developer, which is probably where I am, or a senior developer, or like a tech lead. Like right now, my current job is being the tech lead of Content Link, right? Like that's currently my title, I guess. So I'm working as the person that, approves all of the projects, approves all the technology that we use, and does the systems engineering for most of them.
Right.
But I don't know if I could get that same job at a different company. That's my own imposter syndrome kicking in. But I just putting it out there is just one of those, like, that's how I feel. But I think that a lot of people feel this way, regardless of their experience. There's some people that might have thousands of GitHub stars that feel this way because they don't have something else like that they need. I don't know. It's just
they could have faked their UI with, not faked it, but they could have used all the pre-built stuff in Bootstrap and not changed a single thing. So they could be the back-end guy or like just the logic guy, and then they could feel like as though they don't know how to do UI, so therefore all their UIs look the same, or some like random anxiety-inducing thing.
Yeah. I think the trick is to not get locked down by it, because it's really easy to like panic and start to stress about it and actually like have it affect your work. Whereas what it should do is maybe affect your work, but affect it in a positive way. Be like, okay, well, I know the fact that I don't have enough GitHub, like for me personally, I don't have enough GitHub projects. So that's why I'm doing the Sanity and Gritsum project, because it's a good kind of full stack project that I can throw on my GitHub and have something there. Like I do have a few things, but it's not enough.
I don't have, like, I have like one thing maybe.
Yeah, it's like, that's what I mean. Like I have like 2 or 3 things. It's not enough. Regardless, it's not enough. But if I needed to, I could probably sit down in a couple months and, get some good projects on there if I really, really needed to, which is something that I think that like that's the measure that I'm going for myself by. And for you, it should be the same way. Like your Webflow skills are good, and the Webflow skills directly reflect to regular CSS and layout skills. Your JavaScript UI manipulation skills are good. So you can definitely throw together some good projects on your GitHub or your portfolio using Webflow or something like that. It's all perspective. There's a million different technology stacks. You can't learn them all. And you shouldn't stress about not knowing them enough to be able to like use them immediately. I think that's the key, because as long as you know of them and you understand how, like, just the basics of what they do, it's enough for you to talk about them, which is important, and enough for you to then take that knowledge and expand on it if it's required. Because you can't learn everything. It's just impossible. So we need to get you in a state where you can learn the things that you want to learn, because right now you're not in that state.
I'm bouncing around it's not just bouncing around too much. It's not bouncing around projects. It's bouncing around stacks too. It's like bounce here, bounce to there, bounce to here, and then all of a sudden it's like, now I'm doing sysadmin. Like I did a bunch of sysadmin today. Yeah,
I hate that stuff.
Well, I'm fine. Yeah. I'm fine with it, but it becomes a problem when it's sysadmin, WordPress, tiny bit of PHP, a little bit of JS, a little bit of typo, back over to Couch CMS, back over to the, and it's like I'm not learning anything.
Yep.
Although, I guess it's like Webflow is generating us money, so there's that. I don't know. It's a mess. Like it's a maybe you know what? I'll upgrade myself. Maybe I'll apply to a manager position.
There we go.
Managing all this crap.
Yeah, it's real world experience.
I mean, yeah, no, you're not wrong. But yeah, I think you made really good points. Like in all seriousness, I think you made really good points in that. Like, I actually feel a lot better that you don't know Webpack. If I'm being totally blunt. Webpack, for whatever reason, to me, and Gatsby, when people say, like, I just did Gatsby, and they just toss it aside, when I read about Gatsby, like, I'm a kind of a person that likes to understand exactly what is happening, and, like, I've tried to read that crap, and I'm like, holy crap, this is a lot. This is a lot. You know how, like, when you're in a computer, like, I have my task manager open now because I was dealing with that problem earlier. And there's crap freaking flying in here. We got Skype, desktop window manager. We got system in here. There was some system interrupt thing earlier. We got Audacity, obviously, freaking recording. We got Zoom right now. We got an anti-malware service executable. We got Discord open. We got all this crap. But there's all this stuff flying in. You know how, like, we're developing for the browser and we don't really control or care about what the browser does. For whatever reason, I think of Webpack not as something like that. I always think of Webpack and other technologies like Gatsby and stuff like that, just using Webpack as an example, where I want to understand everything. But in reality, I shouldn't do that because I don't understand, even when I administer Windows, I don't understand all the services and processes and Windows going through. You'd never be able to keep up. And those developers that make those things, they don't understand all that crap either. There's a reason why there's massive bugs and knowledge base articles and issues and calling things and special support staff and all the rest of it, because we've now reached a point where it's critical mass. And I'm not saying Webpack and those have reached that point, but you're right about the Wild West thing. The Wild West is like we're building upon the Wild West, effectively. It's like everything's all over the damn place, and certain things are maybe on the decline, maybe like jQuery is on the decline or whatever. I don't know all the stats. But we're building all these pieces, and then we just keep building on top of it and building on top of it and building on top of it. When I guess I'm expecting perfection and then also perfect understanding, when I really shouldn't be doing that. You know, like we configure something like a network interface card, but I don't understand exactly what the packets look like anymore. It's been years. Realistically, I'm interacting with them, but I don't need to look that up, and I wouldn't look that up, and I need to treat web tech the same way. Like if I decide tomorrow to suddenly do a React project, which I don't have time for, but like let's just say I did, I would do what you're doing with Webpack. Is I would just use Webpack to its end, make sure it's running and whatever, and then that's it. Another thing I do need to get good with too is developer just terminology. I talk very much in English, if you will, and people say like, "Oh, this is this method." And, like, I know what a method is, but every single time they say it, I gotta stop and think. Like, it's not a muscle memory yet. And so I think to myself, oh my god, what is that? But I know what it is. And then when I see it, it's like, oh yeah, okay. And then a couple months go by, I don't use JS for a while, and then it's like, well, this method did this. I'm like, what's that? Oh, here we go, you know? And I was like that in the very beginning with, like, object, and now I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? It's just like, I just don't use it a bunch, because I'm running around doing a whole bunch of other stuff. So... But I'm glad you don't know exactly what you're doing at every step, because I thought you were supposed to be totally blunt, and I was freaking out when I read that. When I read that beginner Webpack, I was like, oh, good. So just, like, the thing that scared me the most was that they weren't memorizing it, they understood it. And then when I was thinking to myself, I was like, how the hell am I supposed to know what to call, what to build with, what things to pull in, on top of the fact that I don't even know JSX yet? Like, what the hell am I doing?
No, you don't need to build. You don't need to build it from scratch. Like that is a ludicrous thing to. Okay, your thought process, just to break it down for everyone else, was to learn React. You had to learn JS, which you know.
Yep.
CSS, HTML, which you know. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, start learning again the basics of how to build the React project, which is Webpack, from the ground up.
Yeah.
Right. Then learn how the JSX templates work from the ground up. Put it all together. And learn also the React logic, the reactivity side of it, and then all the other plugins and stuff like that from the ground up without any, like, like without any helpers to get you along the way, like literally build it yourself, which is, I don't know if anyone's ever done that. Maybe the first person to ever build React did it, but I highly doubt that anyone, like Facebook did it, but I highly doubt anyone goes in right away, builds their own Webpack config without the React CLI or the React create React app, my first React app CLI tool, and builds their React application with Webpack. Because that's what, like that CLI, the create apps React CLI, builds the entire Webpack config for you immediately without you having to do any sort of Webpack anything. You don't need to learn Webpack for so long, like in your React development. Like,
sorry, what was that thing that does the Webpack for you again? What did you say?
So create React app or something like that.
That is what they kept talking about in that article.
Yes.
And I didn't get the reference obviously yet. Damn it.
So then I want to go on to the next terminology thing, the statement that you made. For that does require work in terms of, like, again, listening to our podcast, listening to Syntax. So I listen to Syntax. I don't listen to it every week, but I do listen to it pretty often. And they do talk about this kind of stuff and explain it and stuff like that. So that's where I pick it up. And then also just watching tutorials really helps me too. So sometimes if I'm working on a technology, I'll watch a tutorial and they'll explain a lot of the stuff from the ground up. So if I were to start a React project, I would watch a tutorial from start to finish. Like if that was my intention, maybe skipping through a couple things, but I'll watch it from start to finish before even touching code, if that makes sense. And then I'll go back to the start of the tutorial and then I'll kind of code along with it if I need it, right? But first I want to get the concepts, the terminology and stuff down so that I can actually ask the right questions, so that I can do the right steps. Because you're right, like going into React, for instance, you don't know about the create React, the React app create. You don't know about Webpack. You don't know about how to use any things. So then it becomes overwhelming because there's a million different technologies building on top of each other.
Not to mention you got to learn that new syntax like JSX. Yeah. Well, chances are you're going to use that, unless you're going to use the regular code, which is even more confusing.
Yep. But if you go and watch a 10, 30-minute tutorial and it breaks it down for you, like to get started, it becomes really... it stops being overwhelming and starts being very realistic. And using that, you can build on top of that because now you've got the basic terminology down. So if your React, create React or whatever, my React create, I don't remember what it's exactly called, React app, my first React app, breaks at some point, you know what to Google. You can be like, oh, my create React app broke at this point. But if you didn't go through, like if you didn't look at a tutorial, if you just went blind into it, you don't even know what to Google. Like you don't even know what to start with.
Yeah, to be like, is this my development environment? Is this my CMD? Like where do I...
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't know what to do. So I think it's important to kind of go through the steps, learning every new technology, so that you don't get overwhelmed and just keep on top of it. Like, again, if you listen to Syntax or if you like, just pay attention to dev.to or Medium articles every once in a while. It does help with the terminology side of things for sure. But yeah, that's kind of how I handle that problem.
All right. Well, that's good advice. Thank you. Mm-hmm. I now feel a little better. And when things calm down, and there's a big asterisk, if things calm down, then I'll give it a try. Maybe that'll be something I try on stream where we can write out a big article thing about me diving into something that's completely unknown like maybe I'll do it in steps, like do a vanilla project and then do a similar project, or at least something that, let's say they all pull from an API or something. So do an API driven project with vanilla, one on React, one on WordPress or something, whatever. And maybe that can be like a bit of a journey, because like I don't know. So it would be interesting to see from even my own knowledge, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, I think even before you would do the live Twitch stream, just because jumping in without knowing the terminology is tough, I would do it like at least an initial get started tutorial.
I'd probably do the Hello World equivalent,
something like that. Yeah, something like that. At least to get some knowledge, because if you go on stream and then you start watching, like essentially you're watching a video on stream, which you can do. Yeah, like that's not a big deal. I've seen people do it, but it could be kind of like dead content for a little while.
Yeah, you're right. Like maybe I would even try to make a brief UI or something. Who knows?
Just really small, and then kind of go in through and start building. And then once you get to a wall, then stop the stream, go on your own. Like I think that's how I'm going to handle it, and I think that's exactly a perfect way to segue into the next and last topic here, which is Twitch streaming, and trying to just exploring that new avenue for us. So just going to get right into it. Like for me, I was really hesitant on the Twitch streaming because I've never done it before. I've never done live streaming, even for gaming. I know, Matt, you've live streamed quite a bit on the gaming side of things.
Literally
so you
doing
have a
it
little
tomorrow.
bit of comfort with it. You'll be doing it tomorrow, exactly. So like you had some comfort with it, but I didn't. So jumping in, I didn't know what to do. But you helped me set up and get going and have like at least a decent chance at a decent first stream, which was really good. Like I like my first stream a lot. And I think we were really lucky to have like the audience be extremely active in it. So that's one really big and awesome factor of, I guess, our community. When we announce the Twitch stream, we have a few of the active members of our community jump on and just kind of keep everyone busy in the Twitch, in the live chat. Recently, we had one of our community members, Keon, in the Discord. He just starts telling war stories in the chat.
Yeah, which is awesome, honestly.
Which is awesome. Yeah, like crazy war stories, because he was in the army for I think 14 years. So he has plenty of stories to tell that aren't obviously the ones that aren't classified. So it's been fun. Like and like random things happened. For instance, like the Sanity developer that jumped in and we coded together for a little while. So like that's been a really positive experience for us. We've got a lot of really good feedback from it. And stuff like that. And it's just been another way of us to show our process of coding. And it's been like, it's not a one-to-one process of how I would code normally, because there's a few very different factors. Like for instance, I have to monitor the chat. I'm coding on one screen as opposed to 3 screens, which is a little bit of a productivity issue for sure, because I'm trying to make sure that everything on the screen is everyone's seeing everything that I'm seeing. So I can't be coding across 3 screens. Otherwise, people are going to be only seeing 1/3 of the content. So that's been an adjustment for me for sure. And because of like both those things, both managing the chat and the 3 screens, I'm much slower on stream than I would be in regular mode. So it's not something that I could I probably couldn't do a production project front to back on stream. I don't think that that's a possibility, but these small projects like the blog site or like that D&D monster app that I did are perfect for streaming because I learned something. I'm usually trying to kind of push myself to learn new things when I'm on the stream so that you guys can see my debugging process. Everyone can see how I go about learning a new technology, how frustrated I get. And so I think it makes for a more interesting stream in general if I'm kind of struggling a little bit. Otherwise, it might be educational if I'm not struggling, but it's not as entertaining.
Well,
I think that's the idea.
It humanizes the experience as well, because there's something very ominous about sort of like the quote unquote God developer on like Stack Overflow that just writes his answer and leaves, and people might be like, hey, that's not the most efficient or something, and just no answer because he's going to do that response to it. You know, we all know that type of developer exists out there, right? So it's something more humanizing, at least in my opinion, when you see people struggle, because you're going to struggle, the listener's going to struggle, I'm going to struggle. One of the biggest problems I've always had, Mike, is I can't find out where to put things. So I have the script all done and I don't know where to friggin' put the file. And then I'm like, where the hell does this go when using a certain thing? And then it's like, oh, here we go. Like, now I don't know where to put it. So
yep.
And that's the last step. And that's something I just don't like, where does this go now?
I'm going to be honest. I got stuck on something like that recently. Like even in Vue.js, just asset handling and dynamic asset handling can be a little bit tricky because you don't sometimes you have to put the file in the public folder and sometimes you put it in the asset folder, depending on what kind of plugin you're using, depending on what kind of JavaScript dynamic functionality you're using. And I get stuck on it all the time. Like it's just, I hate that stuff too. And that's the stuff that I do get stuck on when I'm Twitch streaming, and it gets a little bit frustrating. And I've got to get something that I need to get better at is just using my debugging process that I usually use rather than just getting flustered because I'm on live and I need to get stuff done. And And I have gotten a little bit better at that, but it's still like I still get a little bit flustered when I do reach like a very specific wall and I can't get past it, because my usual approach is if I reach a wall, I'll usually take a break. And Twitch streaming, like, you can't really do that, but I guess what I could do is I could like context switch to a different side of the project and then come back or something. Like, I have to adapt. I essentially have to adapt, and that's where I'm at right now. I'm adapting to Twitch streaming. I really like it. It's been a lot of fun, and hopefully, we see more of you on the stream, because our chat is 90% of the fun of the Twitch stream, I think, for now.
It's definitely like a community event,
Yeah.
which is awesome, because you and I can't always be super active in the Discord. Hence, the whole thing about me being busy and you being busy, the same thing is. That's why we're sometimes not on the Discord for like a week or something, because it's just, we have to go and solve a bunch of problems, or we have to code up a bunch of stuff, we have to finish something, and it's just the way it is, solving computer problems, whatever. And you're right, like the Twitch stream is as much of a community event as it is something to push us. And I think you're right in that, where it's just a matter of adapting. Like, there's been a couple things in Webflow where it's like, damn, I gotta buy this, or I gotta upgrade my plan, I gotta go to do the be right back screen or whatever, because I got to go and like type in all my credit card details and stuff. And even though like in a regular setting where I'm not being recorded, that's totally normal. I just go type my credit card. It's like, I'm not going to type my credit card in front of everybody. That's a very small thing, but it's still like a hole in the workflow type of thing. And so there are little adaptations like that you need to do, and absolutely need to keep it up and that type of thing. So, but I think the Twitch stream is we're an affiliate now, so things are going well. I keep planning Twitch streams. I keep being pulled away. It's the forever issue on Hat. I feel like our listeners, especially longtime listeners, have heard this like 1,400 times, where we say, "Oh, we're gonna be really active this week," and then disappear into the abyss because like some random thing went down or something. And that, But I guess that's just the life of a tech person, I guess. Whatever, right? But I think. I mean, we're at an hour 20. I think that really concludes it, Mike. Unless you have anything else to add.
No, do it up. Roll out the outro.
Yeah, so, hopefully you like this episode. A little bit of a different one this week, but this kind of wraps up some of the stuff that Mike and I had been talking about, but just wasn't quite enough information for full episodes. So hopefully you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure you let us know. But remember, on that Patreon, if you want to support the show, that's patreon.com/HTMLthethings. Check out those tiers and give that a go. And many thanks to our $3 tier patrons. Sean from RabbitWorks JavaScript, find him at youtube.com/RabbitWorksJavaScript. Garrick from Local Path Computing and Web Design, find him at localpathcomputing.com. Ryan Gatchell from Blue Black Digital, find him at blueblackdigital.com. Chris from Self-Made Web Designer, find him at selfmadewebdesigner.com. Tim from The Web Hacker, find him at thewebhacker.com. DL Ford from dlford.io, and Bib Hashdash from Twitter via @BibHashdash. Feel free to leave a comment or review on this platform that you're listening to this on, and this outro will sign us off.
You've been listening to HTML All the Things Podcast. Web development, web design, and small business. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show. And we hope you appreciate that we talk to you like human beings. And we hope you had some fun. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit us up on social media. On Facebook, Instagram, and Patreon at HTML All the Things. And on Twitter at HTML Everything. Until next time, this is HTML All the Things, signing off.